Thank you for joining us today, everybody. We are going to be getting started here pretty soon. For those of you who are joining us on social, if you want to head over to plenairmagazine.com/free-webinar, we'll throw that link up here for you in just a second. That way you can participate in the webinar. We've got chats and we'll be giving away prizes, but you have to be present to win. So make sure you head over there to sign in today. And then let's make sure our chat is working. If you could pop in the chat and tell me where you're watching from and what you're most excited to learn about today. I'll give you guys a second to do that, and then we are going to give away some prizes. Hi guys, welcome back. Thank you all so much you guys are coming in from everywhere, Canada, Colorado. I see you guys from everywhere. Let's give away some prizes, shall we? The first one I have is Albert Handel's painting in oil video, and that is going to go to Sherry Maxwell. Congratulations, Sherry. We'll have a streaming copy of that for you. And next, we are going to give away William A. Schneider's expressive oil portraits video, and that is going to go to Marguerite LaRoche. Congratulations, Marguerite. And finally, we have Jill Stephanie Wagner's pastel painting from photos video, and that is going to go to Susan Kennedy from British Columbia, Canada. Congratulations, Susan. So if you guys could hang tight for just a couple of minutes, we're going to get started right on time at 2 o'clock Eastern. Like I said before, if you are joining us on social, head over to plenairmagazine.com/free-webinar. And that way you can join us so that you can participate in the chat, you can ask questions, and then if you're in there, you also have the opportunity to win some prizes later today. So hang tight and we will see you guys in about 5 minutes. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to get started exactly on time. A little housekeeping note for you guys. If anybody experiences any technical issues today, give your browser a refresh. That tends to fix any issues 99% of the time. And for anyone joining on social today, if you could head over to plenairmagazine.com/free webinar, you will be able to join us in our chats, ask questions, and you'll also be eligible for prizes that we'll be giving away this afternoon. So welcome everyone to Artist Path. Today's webinar is sponsored by Pastel Live, the online conference produced by Streamline coming up in mid-August. And it's the world's largest online pastel event. We have 25 incredibly important artists from around the world that will be teaching and attendees from over 40 countries. You can learn more about that at pastellive.com. We'll also be giving away some prizes here at the end of the day, so make sure you stay tuned because you do have to be present to win. And we will also have a free gift for everyone who is watching today. You are here today because you are either an artist or want to become an artist. You want to take your art to the highest possible level, and we intend to deliver that today. We have 4 amazing guests with us today, including Jill Stephanie Wagner, Albert Handel, Aaron Schur, and William A. Schneider. All are highly accomplished and have built amazing careers, and we will be hearing from them in a moment. Put the do not disturb sign on your door, turn off your phones, turn off everything else. You will not be able to check email and watch at the same time because you will miss something. Make sure you take some notes and stick around to the end so you can post some questions. Now, let's get to know your host. A lot of you already know who our host is, Eric Rhoads, but we've actually had thousands of people sign up for this event today, so we'll let you guys know who he is. Eric is the founder of Streamline Publishing, and over 2 decades ago, he became a plein air painter and started Plein Air Magazine and Fine Art Connoisseur Magazine. Today, we also have multiple digital art newsletters, including Inside Art, Pastel Today, Realism Today, Fine Art Today, Plein Air Today, and American Watercolor. We also host art conventions like the recent Plein Air Convention, artist retreats like the upcoming Fall Color Week, and artist trips like our upcoming trip to paint cherry blossoms in Japan, as well as our online art conferences, Pastel Live, Realism Live, Watercolor Live, and Plein Air Live. They started during the pandemic and they continue strong to this day because people can learn from home without the travel expenses. Perhaps you've seen Eric Rhoads on his YouTube daily with Art School Live, which he started during the pandemic. Literally millions have discovered art techniques from his show and lots of people have become artists because of it. When he has time, Eric is a landscape and portrait artist. He with work in 4 different galleries. He is passionate about making art, and I even saw him on Instagram this last weekend painting from his boat. If you want to follow him on Instagram, it's simply at Eric Rhoads, Rhoads. Because Eric was so frustrated with trying to learn art, he has devoted his life to making art easier and more fun to learn. He believes anyone can learn to paint, even if you don't believe in yourselves. And our site, painttube.tv, has over 600 art instructional videos that we have created from the world's leading artists, including each of our guests today. You can find it on Roku, Apple TV, Samsung TV, and Amazon Fire, as well as the App Store. A reminder that our topic today is the artist's path, and if you stick around, we will have several prizes to give away. Our goal is to take you to the highest possible level as fast as possible, or to teach you to paint for the first time. We have over 4,000 people joining us today. Thank you all for attending, and now for your host, Eric Rhoads.
A loaf of bread, some strawberries would be good. I got to hurry up. I'm going on this webinar in a couple of minutes. What do you mean, what am I wearing? I'm wearing a black shirt. Yes, it's ironed. It's ironed. Well, I did it myself. Okay. Wait. Oh, gotta go. Bye. Oh, we're alive. I'm sorry. Hey, everybody. It's Eric. Hi. I'm in my studio in the Adirondacks, and I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you. We're going to do some transformation today. Just to give you a feel for where I am, I'm going to just show you, take my camera and point it out the window, and you can see that I'm on a lake in the Adirondacks. That's my little dock out there. And I'm in a cabin that is it was 1894 it was built. So I spend my summers here and I love it. And I'm glad that technology means I didn't have to get on an airplane to go back to do this week. I want to get right to the meat of today's topic. First off, I want to say thank you. You guys showed up, and that means a lot to me. And our goal here at Streamline is to, I've tried to devote my entire life to teaching people to have the confidence that they can paint. We have during COVID with Art School Live, we went on because, we had nothing else to do, right? And we had thousands and thousands of people. We had millions of viewers. We had thousands of people who told us they learned how to paint for the first time. They learned a new form of painting for the first time. And a lot of people who said, I came back to painting after, when I was in high school or something. And I just think that the best work that we can do is to help people realize that they can learn to paint. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. If you guys have burning issues, drop them in the chat right now. What is, for instance, the one thing that you hope to get out of today? Put that in the chat, and then we're going to collect them, and we'll try to make sure that we cover your answers. We got some incredible artists with us today. It's going to be really cool. Our guests, who you're going to meet soon, are really, really high level. And these are people who have great careers, some who have had great careers for long, long time, and some not as long, but they have the answers. I have my ideas, but they have all the answers, and they're here to help you and give you answers. So we want to make sure that you put your burning issues in, so we're addressing those. Quickly also into the chat, tell me a little bit about you. Tell me like where you're from, where you're watching from. Maybe, what is your primary medium? If you're like an oil painter, watercolorist, pastel, you just do drawing, whatever it is, just put that in there. And tell me what you hope to get out of today. You want to soar to the next level? Tell us that, okay? Do that real quickly. Now, a lot of you and I already know each other. We've met at various events. We've met online. We've done a lot of things together. But we found out this week that we have thousands of people who I've never had a chance to meet. So nice to meet you. I thought I'd give you a little bit of background, a little story, if you will. When I was a kid, I suppose like all of us, like when you were a kid, I'd lay down on the floor and color all the time. I was just constantly coloring, and I liked Archie. Archie coloring books were my favorite. I loved to color in Archie and Veronica and Betty, and well, I can't even think of all the characters' names. And my mom was a painter. She was a hobby painter. She wasn't a great painter, but at the time she seemed like a great painter to me because I didn't know any different. And I would watch her paint all the time, but I didn't believe I could do it. And I remember when I was in the fourth grade, there was this kid. I don't remember his last name. His name was Ricky. And Ricky was drawing, when we were supposed to be doing our lessons, he was drawing Disney characters. And they all looked really good to me. And I thought, well, this kid's got talent. I wish I had talent, but I don't. And so I never really believed that I could do what he could do or what other people could do. And what I've realized is that the key to learning is having a process. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But when I was in my late 30s, I was I was a workaholic. I had a business. I was just working all the time. I had pretty much destroyed my marriage because I worked all the time. And I was kind of boring. And I thought, there's got to be more to life. So my radar was up. I was looking for something. So I tried photography, and I did a lot of photography, traveled the world doing photographs. But, I never really completely felt satisfied with it. I loved it, did a lot of good work. I tried woodworking. I still do woodworking, but it wasn't what I was really looking for. And one day my wife, her car was broken or something. So I had to drop her off at the hairdresser, and it was like 45 minutes away. So I'm only going to go home and then come back. So I just decided to kill time. And right next to the hairdresser was an art store. And I thought, wow, I don't think I've ever been in an art store. So I wandered into this art store, and I just looked at all the cool things. And I didn't, they had easels and paints, and I didn't know anything about any of it. So I ended up, I dropped about $200. I bought all kinds of paints. I think I bought acrylic paints, bought an easel, just all kinds of stuff. And I tried, when I got home, I was really excited. So I ripped out a couple pictures from National Geographic and I tried to paint those. And, it was really frustrating. My paint was globby and my drawing was awful. And so I worked on it for weeks and weeks and weeks, but I just couldn't get it down. It just wasn't very good. So I finally kind of realized that drawing and painting wasn't the thing for me. It was stressful. So I took all that stuff, threw it in the box, took it down to the basement, put it in the basement, and I gave up. And I was convinced I couldn't learn because I didn't have the talent. And I just didn't want that kind of stress in my life, frustration. So anyway, my wife sensed that. And so she buys me this art lesson. And I go to the Armory Art Center in West Palm Beach. And this guy, we were all told to bring this big canvas. And this guy says, all right, now I want you to just express yourself. Just put the paint on the canvas, throw the paint around. And I'm like, okay. And so I did it. And it was just, it was fun. But, and then I did 2 or 3 lessons. I felt like I wasn't really learning anything. I went and I said to the instructor, I said, can you teach me to paint like a bottle or a flower or, something real? And he said, no, nobody does that anymore. That's old school. It's been done. That's, nobody teaches it. You can't learn it anymore. And so I was frustrated and I quit the class. I think I even left my painting there. It's probably still there if you want it. I think that you just, you sometimes you're going to get a bad instructor. So a couple of years passed and then I was in this cab and this cab driver I told him the story and he said, oh, well, I know a guy. He said he worked in the lineage of the old masters. He's in the lineage of Jerome. He studied under Ives Gammel and Frank Riley and Signoris Simi in Florence. I said, I don't know who these people are. He said, well, when you study in the lineage of somebody, you are learning what they've passed on from generation to generation. So I went in, I was really nervous. I almost didn't go. And I ended up walking into this class and everybody was painting copies of old masters. And I walked in, I turned around and I left because I thought I can't do that. Thankfully, the guy happened to see me and he called me back in and I said, look, I can't do this. He said, give me 18 months and you can do this. He says, but I'll have you painting some good things in a couple of days. I said, no, that's not possible. He said, no, if you understand that painting is a process, the process is what you need to learn. So he immediately engaged me, got me doing something. Before you know it, time had passed. I was doing some pretty good paintings. They still hang on my walls. And I was pretty proud of what I did. But it was a time when I almost gave up. And I really didn't think anybody could teach me. But I am now convinced more than ever, because I learned that and because now I teach people to paint, that you can learn a process. Now, there are definitely people who have some natural talent, but most of their natural talent is applied practice, right? They just practice and practice and practice, some of them for months and years and decades. And we think they have talent, but they've just gotten good at it over time because they just keep growing. So there's a concept called unconscious incompetence. In other words, we are incompetent, but we don't even know it. We're not conscious about it. We don't know that we suck, right? So I look back and I realize how much I sucked, even when I thought I was getting good. And, I got beyond that, and you'll get beyond that if you're new. Anybody in the comments, put in there, do you ever feel like you thought you were good, but now you look back and you realize maybe you weren't? I think one of the things you're going to discover listening to our guests today, because I know these people intimately, they all went through struggle. They all went through pain. They all had moments where they painted badly, where they were trying to learn. Every good painter that I know started out by doing bad paintings and bad drawings. Very, very rare that somebody has a natural gift, although some of them do. So the key, I want to say before we get going today, the key is to power through. Because one day you're going to go from bad to better. you're never going to lose frustration because you're always growing. But I had one of those moments. Have any of you had that moment when all of a sudden you knew you were better? You know, there's a lot of good teachers out there, but there's also some that aren't very good teachers. They may be great artists, they may be great people, but you know, I hear all the time people who get frustrated because the teacher is pushing them too hard, or maybe they just don't understand teaching, and so they're not listening to the student. You know, they overcomplicate things, and so look, you can do this. If you're new, you can do this, and don't even ever think about quitting, because when you quit, when you suffer pain, that's when you're about to break through. How many comments? How many have ever contemplated quitting? I'll bet a lot of you have. Now, I had a transformation, and our goal today is to give you a transformation. We're not teaching painting today, but we're teaching you a little bit about how to think about painting and how to think about how to get better. Today, we hope will be exactly what you need, so you can hear exactly the things you need to get you to the level you want to be at, whether you're a beginner, whether you're going to the next level. You will find that there will be nuggets. Some of you will hear those nuggets and they won't mean anything to you. Others, you're going to go, oh, that was the most important thing I ever heard. So it's almost comical, though, because when I was doing really bad paintings, as I look back, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my friends, they'd be like, oh, that's really a good painting. And they're just flat out lying to me, you know. And I know they know the difference between good and bad. And they mean well, they're trying to encourage you. But, you know, at some point you can kind of feel it, like, oh, nice colors, or, ooh, interesting composition. But I remember a moment. I studied with Joe McGurl, and Joe gave me a week of his time. Then I just practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced the principles that he taught me. And all of a sudden, people are saying things like, wow, your painting's getting better, or who did that? That's really good. And, you know, and I could say, hey, I did that. So instead of false compliments, you know, people try to be nice, you start getting real ones. And this is what's going to happen as you break through, as you push yourself through to a higher level. You're going to start seeing a difference. Any of you ever experienced that? Comments? We'd love to see them. Okay, so anyway, I'm glad I powered through because, quite frankly, when I powered through and I learned the basics of painting through my teacher, Jack Jackson, the one who was in the lineage of all these guys, it changed everything, because I fell in love with art. I went to the San Francisco Museum. I saw a Bouguereau painting for the first time in person, and I literally wept, because it's like I realized I could see the veins through the skin, and I realized the struggle that he had to have gone through to get to that point. I wasn't anywhere close to that, but I realized how tough it was. And that's the moment I said, I'm going to devote my life to art. And that changed everything, because I ended up starting Plein Air Magazine, Fine Art Connoisseur Magazine, all the stuff Carrie was talking about. And none of that would have happened if I would have given up painting, if I would have not persisted. And all of you have something to offer the world that won't happen if you give up. And so if any of you are kind of feeling like you're going to give up, just don't give up. Power through no matter what, and you're going to love this. Okay. How many people here are willing to power through? Okay. So there's a mixture of people in here. I'd like you to put in the comments who you are. Like, you know, you already talked about what you want to do, but are you open to new things? Because I find that if you, sometimes people can beat you over the head and tell you exactly what you need to do, and you go, no, that's not it. So you got to keep an open mind today. Now, we're artists. We're typically pretty open-minded people anyway, but don't automatically say, you know, if Albert says something, or Bill says something, or Aaron or Stephanie, don't automatically say, no, that doesn't work for me. Consider everything they have to say, okay? These guests are highly accomplished. You probably know them, but briefly, here's a point about each one of them, and then we're going to bring them on. William A. Schneider left a high-paying career, and I mean high-paying, to pursue a full-time commitment to art. He has achieved remarkable success. He continues to earn major awards. Every time I turn around, I'm getting a press release about another award that Bill's won. He is going to share his insights today and speed up your journey. Our next guest is Aaron Schur. Aaron just embarked on his artistic journey at a young age. And he looks young now, but he's got like grown kids, right? So he is cultivating success and has been because he's really pursued things at the highest level. He has bypassed a lot of the common pitfalls. So he's here because he can show you, if you're younger, how you can do some of these things faster, how to shortcut things, if you will. Jill Stephanie Wagner leapt from a successful advertising agency career. She owned an ad agency, I think in Detroit, into art. She gave up her good job to become a full-time artist. And it's proving to never be too late. You know, she started a little later in life, but her passion for oil and pastel brings varied subjects to life, serene landscapes, lively city architecture, always a keen focus on the interplay of light and shadow. And then finally, the master himself, Albert Handel. Since 1961, he has had over 30 one-man shows. Now, that's a lot of work. He's received over 70 top prizes and awards. He's considered one of the most successful living artists today and one of the great masters of our time. And just imagine the level of insights and knowledge that he has. All of these people have insights and knowledge, but you know, if you've been painting since 1961, you got a lot. So let's welcome all of our artists on right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone.
We're glad you're here. All right, so we have met on a couple of occasions working on this today, and I've got a lot of questions, but I'm going to start out with a big one. And we're going to do ladies first in this case, and then we're going to go to each of you. Jill, how do you find your personal style, your personal voice? That's the biggest question I get all the time.
Well, I think when we're just starting out, a lot of us want that. We see other artists who have something that's recognizable in any one of their paintings. And I wanted to do that as well. And I went to the woman that was my mentor at the time and said, I don't have a style. I just pop all over the place. Nothing looks the same. And how do I get my style? And the first thing she said is that your style will come to you. You don't go to the style. The more you paint, the more your style will come forward. But the other thing she did to make it easier for me to understand, she said, I think you should paint one subject 25 times. Not the same reference photo, but the same subject matter, so that you learn something inside and out. If you flit around to a whole bunch of different things, you don't ever get a good grasp of one subject matter. And the other thing she told me to do, which was very helpful for me, was to paint large. You're painting way too small. You're painting these little teeny weeny paintings, get big. So I did that. I did 25 paintings of river stones, which I was doing mostly as studies. They were 30 inches high and 15 inches wide. And they all sold. And it really put me on a path to painting in a series. So that helped me get a style.
Awesome. All right. Next, we're going to go to Albert. Albert, did you ever have that struggle?
What struggle is that?
Trying to find a style.
Oh, no, I just kept painting. As I look back on my career, I had a preponderance for transparent color, including in oils. And when I studied at the Art Students League, that was discouraged, and large brushes were encouraged and all that. And I learned how to do that. The first day, I laid it out the way I lay things out now. Second day, I covered it all up so I could do proper painting, and I really felt depressed. And then the third day, a lot of this stuff is the nude and all that. I took it out of the toilet bowl, as I used to say, and did this, that, and the other thing. And the painting was much better, much more alive. And I said, this process really doesn't work for me. And I got very good in the process. I started working with small brushes and all that. And after 8, 9 years of doing very, very well, I had a show coming up at the ACA Gallery, and I had a painter's block, which basically meant I wasn't going to mix those oils up again and again. And something said pastel. And when I called up my friends, buy this, buy that, it was like a fish going into water. I didn't have all those tapes in my head. And it was through the pastel that I found another Albert, which has been wonderful to greet and has affected my oils and my transparency for my oils and my pastel is a big thing for me personally. And I started off with that, and I got waylaid. I walked down the garden path, and it was a fun trip. But sometimes you're just going to have to work at it and see how you feel and moderate things so that what you're doing works best with your feelings. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, it does, but I have a couple of probing questions as a result of that. You said that you got depressed and you said this process isn't working for me, but you said also I pulled it out of the toilet and reworked it and it got good. So what was it that you did that changed it, that made you go from it not being good to being good? Was it just working at it some more?
Seeing it freshly, doing this, that, and the other thing, and that was the end of it. Going back to the things that I initially established and having them stand out more than all the shoulds that I was dealing with the second day.
Okay, so I want to ask you a question. I studied photography under a guy named Franz Picker, who was a student of Ansel Adams. And one of the things he said has really helped me in painting, and I'm curious if this is what happened to you. He said, put it down for 6 months or a year and don't even look at it. Turn it to the wall and then come back to it. Do you find that just having the time to get away from things improves your ability, or are you beyond that now?
Oh, no, I'm not beyond that. A fresh look is perfect. And I do precisely what he told you to do. And it works like wonders for me. I started painting pastel on location or an oil in the studio. And after a session or two, God, I got something. And what I do is I sign them right then and there. I say to myself, if I walk out of the door and I get a heart attack, does this picture at the state that it's in deserve a signature? And I say, yeah, what the heck, why not? And I do that so I don't have to go through the agony of, is it finished? Can I sign it?
Yeah.
That thing could be very painful for an experienced artist. I don't know if that helps your question.
That helps me a lot. All right, next we're going to go to Bill Schneider. Bill?
Hi.
What about you? Did you ever struggle with finding your look, your voice?
You talking about yesterday, or we always struggle. You know, I remember when I was starting out, I would see these great artists, contemporary artists, and I would, have them on the pedestal. Oh, I am not worthy. And I have come to realize in conversation with other artists that I admire, you talk to a Dan Gerhardt, who, in my opinion, is one of the best artists that has lived ever.
And one of the great guys of all time.
Yes, absolutely. But if you ask these artists that you have on a pedestal, well, what are you working on? What are you struggling with? They'll rattle off 5 or 6 things. And so it never ends. That's the beauty of art. That's why I gave up the pension consulting business, which my partners were happy that I sold it to them, and they think I'm crazy. But it's not even a business. Art is a calling. Why do I paint? Because I have to. I must. If I don't do that, I will go crazy.
Somebody needs to put that as a quote and tweet it. Say that again. Art is a calling.
Yeah. If I don't do it, I would go crazy. I have to do it. So
it's interesting you say that, because I used to do the same thing. I put these guys on a pedestal, and I was talking to Richard Schmid one time. I think the first time I ever talked to him, and he was telling me about all the paintings he had just screwed up and how frustrated he was. And I said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "What do you mean it's great?" I said, "It's good to know that even you screw up your paintings." He said, "Oh, I screw them up all the time." And what he later told me, which I thought was very valuable, he said, "I spent so much time screwing up paintings because I wasn't careful enough in the beginning." He said, I painted with him, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, I guess. And he came, I set up next to him in the garden and painted, and I tried to do what he did. And he spent a lot of time meticulously mixing things, looking up, spend, 5-6 minutes mixing. And then he'd lay his palette knife, he'd look, and he'd do one stroke. And he said, get it right the first time, because otherwise you go back and spend all your time fixing things anyway. So I thought that was interesting.
Absolutely.
So I can tell from each of you, though, that you have a style. I mean, you definitely have developed a style, but it was not intentional for you. It just came.
Yes. When I was at the American Academy, and I asked the question about, well, I want to get my own style. And I had a very, very good instructor, Bill Parks, the legendary Bill Parks. And he said, don't worry about style. Just keep trying to be honest and paint what you see and what moves you. And as Jill said, your style will come to you. I don't particularly think I have a style, but I think that that's the case with everybody. You can recognize work by various artists. You can recognize Aaron's work. You can recognize Jill's work, Albert's. But what I'm trying to do when I'm painting is basically solving problems. We're trying to capture the illusion of 3-dimensional reality on a 2-dimensional surface with little blocks of colored mud, also known as pastels. What could go wrong? So, and in that process, we have to solve different problems. We have to solve problems of placement, of drawing, of color relationships, color temperature relationships, of values, edges, design, all of that stuff. And what I just listed are the 5 things. As a beginning artist, you need to learn shape, value, color temperature, edge, and composition. And that's all. That's it.
Which one is first?
What is first? Shape, yeah. Drawing. Drawing is the most important thing, because it's, if the drawing is off, you can have the best rendering, the best color, all of that stuff, but the viewer all they'll notice is if the drawing is off. And so when I jury shows, and when anybody else juries shows, if the drawing's off, that painting is dead. it goes into the reject group so that the next time you go through, you don't have to look at it. So drawing, and oh, by the way, drawing is the most trainable because there's only two components to it. There's length and there's direction. So how, what is the length from here to here of my nose, and what is the angle? If I get length and angle, it has to look like what I'm trying to paint or draw.
Well, that certainly simplifies it, doesn't it? It's not all that overly complicated. It seems like it would be.
Yes.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about some of those things. Thank you, Bill. Aaron, when I judge art shows, which I do frequently, I just got finished judging a show in Spain and also the Art Renewal Center show. One thing that happens to me is I can, even though they don't put the names on artists, I can instantly identify the fingerprint of the artist. I can tell in many cases that was a Kevin McPherson or that was an Aaron Schur. What are your thoughts on developing personal style?
Wow. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. And I'm just so psyched to be here with this wonderful, amazing crew of artists that all inspire me. So
You're welcome.
yeah, fellow traveler with these amazing people. I think Jill said it right away. To develop a style, one, don't go looking for it, because you're going to get lost trying to look for it. And then, so I just made a quick list. Be a student, always. So there's always more to learn. So be open. And with that, I'd say there's a quote from Neil Gaiman. He's a writer. He says, "Make glorious mistakes." And I've always loved that. Make glorious. That's what I tell students all the time. Make glorious mistakes. Go for it and fail spectacularly. Because if you're afraid of failing, you're going to tighten up, and your work is going to look unresolved and not fresh. So yeah, paint from life. And with that painting from life, paint your experience. The reason that I am such an avid plein air painter is because it's not about replicating the place. It's about sharing my experience of a place. And that's how I'm going to really develop my style, is just to respond honestly in the moment. You can do that best by working from life versus working from a photograph. Again, don't rush it is another thing I put down. That it'll come as you grow and develop. Process over product, it's a different way of saying the same thing. And then another thought about looking at other artists and art, great art, whether it's historical or contemporary. Be discerning in how you look at artwork. So the artists that I really, really admire, oftentimes they are diverse enough in their approach to painting that I might just absolutely fall in love with a certain painting, the painting next to it by that same artist. It might be technically and in every way as wonderful as the other one, but the first one, that one just hits me, right here, makes me short of breath. So I need to ask the next question: why does that one hit me so hard versus, say, maybe the next one, even if it's by the same artist? And so it's taking some time to analyzing, what do you really respond to in other art and why? That will help you to understand yourself, because ultimately it's about understanding yourself and being as true as you can to your experience.
So do you find that when you're out plein air painting that you also have that something takes your breath away moment, and you're like, you have to really understand why it is that you're responding to that? Will that make it a stronger painting, or is there more to that?
Oh, that's an interesting question. There are moments. I remember, I think it was Kwang Ho who talked about stages of development. And the last stage he called grace, which I loved. And that's when whether it's the landscape, the painting is carrying you along and you're just there for the ride. And I remember him saying that that happens to him maybe once or twice in a year. And I'm like, but you're Kwang Ho, like, how could you? And so, you know, so again, it's one of those things, don't go looking for it, it'll find you. There are those moments where suddenly something happens. And if you're open and you're open to that idea of making glorious mistakes, you'll be able to let that carry you along. I guess the way I would look at painting plein air landscapes is it's more about like, where am I most myself? What places can I go and work that I don't think about the state of politics, news, you know, terrible things that are happening in the world or personal stresses. And for me, that's just being out on location. Everything else falls away. So, and because light's changing and you have, you know, generally a couple hours in a session, I've learned to be decisive and to go for it. And so I'm having a relationship with the landscape in the moment. And that's what just gets me excited, and it helps me to focus. I struggle a lot more in the studio to stay focused. I'll get more distracted, check social media, think, oh, I should finish that frame or do that email. So I look for the places that I can be most true to myself and most focused, and I try to make the time for those places.
I've ruined painting sessions because I'll take a break from painting and I'll check my email and somebody will say something that makes me mad, and next thing you know, it's like, I can't even think about this anymore. I think that's a great point. I'm going to open this up to everybody. You have a dialogue going on in your head. You're painting something. I'm just curious what that dialogue typically is. Are you saying, oh, this one's going to really sell, or the gallery's going to love this, or this is garbage, or, you know, what kind of things are going on in your head? Anybody want to take that one?
I'll start off, because this is something that I pay a lot of attention to. As humans, we are always talking to ourselves in our heads. You know, it's a nonstop stream of subject, verb, object. And so we can't control that, but we can control, to some extent, what the dialogue is. So if the internal dialogue is, geez, this really sucks. I started too late. I'm not going to be a good enough artist that I want to be. Maybe I should just give it all up and take up golf again. You know, if that's the dialogue, that is not helpful. But what I have found is helpful is to ask myself paired questions. And when I say paired, I mean the two extremes. So is this stroke too light or too dark? Is it too warm? Is it too cool? Is it too vertical or is it too horizontal? So I'm asking myself questions about a specific point, and if you ask yourself the right questions, all of the answers that are there in your subject. So, you know, if I can say, is this too light or too dark? Well, look at the subject. Okay, how dark is the shadow under my eyebrows compared to the dark of my shirt or the door behind me? So I can say, how dark are the darks compared to the darkest dark that I've identified? How light are the lights compared to the lightest light that I've identified? If I squint down, how sharp are the edges compared to the sharpest edge? Now, if I squint, I'm looking at myself, and I can see a sharp edge where my shirt is up against my skin. And if I stay in a deep squint and raise my eyes and look at my eyes, how sharp are the edges in my eyes compared to the edge of that shirt? If I ask myself that question, I can say, well, wow, those are just whisper soft compared to the sharpest edge. And so I'm basically directing myself to questions that can be solved by observing what's in front of me.
All right, good. Anybody else want to take on?
Yeah. Yeah, I come in from a different angle.
All right.
I like Bill's work, and he's doing portrait, and it's very important where the corner of the nose is in relationship to the corner of the mouth, in relationship to the corner of the eye. Um, I know what that's about because I used to do a lot of work with portraiture, and it's a great way to measure. As a landscape painter, I turn it around, and whatever hits me right then and there happens. And it's an intuitive response. And my intuition is wonderful. I've learned to respect the intuition. Now, this might not work for a portrait. Everything Bill just told you is portrait work, and God bless him and his work and portraiture. I'm talking about landscape, where you have distance behind the initial subject, where you have changing light conditions, where it's not stable. It's in the process of moving, so to speak. You have different intuitive choices and intellectual choices. Yes, I work from dark to light for sure. That's clearly that's clear. Um, uh, I I do all sorts of things with my oil brushes and my pastels. I have found with my pastels that if I vary the pressure of each color, I have more than one color in each stick. And that means a lot to me. So I can flow with the water rather than stop and find something a little darker or a little lighter. So this understanding for landscape, this is not portraiture, has allowed me a freedom to flow from one side to the other side, varying the pressure of the pastel and varying the color.
Awesome.
So it's very intuitive. 1 second. I like to talk to myself when I'm painting, thank God. And when I demonstrate, I just open my mouth and they get to hear my thoughts. So there's a world of difference between still life, portraiture, and plein air painting and landscape. For me, I have gone from, like Bill said, everything he said, I've done, and I agree. And maybe it relates to his landscapes, but it doesn't to mine.
Okay.
Mine is an intuitive, first glance response.
All right, Jill.
Well, to answer your original question, especially since I started later in life, I didn't really get traditional training.
Are you willing to say like approximately what age you were when you started?
I started back painting again maybe when I was maybe 48, something like that.
When you say again, had you painted as a younger person?
Yeah, I went to art school at the University of Michigan and fully intended to be a painter when I got out until I realized the very last semester that I was going to starve to death, that I wasn't ready for that. To be able to make it a full-time career, I needed to support myself somehow. So the very last semester, I took graphics, and then I went into advertising, and there was no time to paint, especially when I owned my own agency. But when I started painting again, all those questions were going through my head. Is this going to sell? Is this good? Does this look like my mentors? I mean, all those things rush through your head and can crowd out the things that you really need to be doing. And it took me a while to figure out that and I tell my students, and I work through the same process myself, whether I'm painting plein air, which I do most of the time, or in the studio, you have to paint with intention
Yes.
to some extent. And what I do is the first thing I figure is, what do I love about this scene, whether it's from a photo or a plein air? What is it that makes my heart sing? Why do I have to paint this? And I write it down on a little piece of paper on my canvas, and then I say, where's my focal point? How do I move the viewer through my painting to get the effect that I want them to have? You have to paint with a voice. You have, I think, to have some kind of thing to say and lead your viewer to understanding what that is.
So what are you trying to say?
Well, it depends on what I'm looking at. Is it the glory of the sunset, or the way the waves are lapping on the water? It's not a humongous idea. It's just the idea for that painting. And actually, you could have a different idea over and over again for the same view. But without having some of that in your mind, you get lost in thinking about comparing yourself to everybody else, or just have a focus for yourself, and then do a value study. This is all before oil or pastel touches the paper.
How do you get all that stuff out of your head, Jill? We just have so much baggage. We have all, our head is always being critical, and I liked what Bill said. But the worst thing that happens to me is I'm setting up, I'm painting with some friends, and I'll go look at what they do, and I go, oh, that's so good. Mine sucks. And
yeah, exactly.
I should have done that. Then I'll start changing things. So now my rule is I never look at their work until we're all done for the day, because it influences me too much. How do you get beyond that? Or do you?
It takes time. I don't think you ever get completely over it. I mean, we're constantly every day looking at social media and seeing everybody's work in front of us, even if it's not at the same place where we're not painting the same view. So I think it's even harder than it was hundreds of years ago, because we have all of these choices to look at and so many people that we admire. At some point, you take all that in, and then you have to distill what's the most important for you, what makes your heart sing,
Okay.
And it's been a struggle for me, and it hasn't been lifelong. It has had to happen quickly, and I'm still doing it every day. I mean, I throw away at least half of what I paint, or have Tia paint over them, or brush them off. With pastels, you can actually brush off the pigment and start again as well. It's the 10,000 hours. It's the keep
Yes.
doing it, loving it. That whole talent thing, I think, is overrated. I think talent really is having the passion to do something so strongly that you will keep doing crappy paintings over and over and over again till you get better. Nobody comes out painting like, Da Vinci or anybody. They had to practice and practice and practice. And I think through that process, you learn more about yourself and what it is that really flips your switch, and narrows down the things that you're trying to achieve.
Rather than focusing on the same question each time, I'm going to just keep asking different questions of different people. But if you have anything you want to add, of course, do that. One thing I get a lot, I'll hear people send me notes from the podcast, and they'll say things like, I need to know, always ask this question, and that is, how do you push yourself to the next level? Is there a way? Is there oh, you guys got to see this. I'm sorry, I got to show you this. This is how we live on the lake. Look, there's a barge with a truck on it. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so is there a method that you could tell people that will help them break through? Anybody want to take that?
Sure. I would say do what Sargent did, what Soroya did, And that is they went to art school, but after they were done with art school, they were instructed, go off to the Prado and copy masterworks. You know, I also have a degree in music, and the difference between musicians and the visual arts, the musicians have to start by copying masterworks. That's how you learn things. You know, if you're a pianist, you play Chopin and Bach and Rachmaninoff and so on and so forth, because you sort of get that information into your ear. You know, the greatest pop musical group, the Beatles, how did they get so good? They were playing 8 hours a day in Hamburg, and they were studying Little Richard and the Shirelles and, you know, Motown artists and so on. And, you know, you don't have to worry that you're going to be mistaken for Richard Schmid if you copy a Richard Schmid painting, but you will learn from that. And if you copy a bunch of different masters, you will start to learn, you know, how do I solve this problem with edges? How do I solve this problem with composition? And so I strongly encourage, to this day, I copy a masterwork at least once a month. You know, and it helps you get the information into your head so that you have it to draw upon when you're solving the problem you're dealing with at that moment.
It doesn't hurt, Bill, when you have masterworks in your house.
Yes, that helps.
Don't
But
give
you know what?
Don't give your dress up.
We live in a marvelous time, at least from this standpoint. We don't have to go to the Prado to see, you know, Velázquez. We can pull it up on our computers and get zoomed in tightly enough to see the brush strokes, so we can solve or learn how the master solved a specific problem. How did Feshen deal with eyes? Well, I can blow up a Feshen eye and just make a little copy of that eye. And what I find is that the information travels through my brush, up my arm, into my brain, and it stands a chance of staying there. If I just read about it or think about it or talk about it, I'll forget it. You know, 2 weeks from now, I'll have forgotten 90% of whatever I talked about today. But if I paint it, it stands a chance of sticking.
All right, good. Anybody else want to take that, Aaron?
About how to move forward, to grow, to
is there a way you can stimulate yourself to the next level?
Yeah, okay. With focusing on plein air painting, I would say looking for simplification, looking for the silhouette. So one of the exercises I'll have students do that sometimes drives them a little crazy is flat color plane exercises. I didn't invent the idea. You know, it was something that was taught to me. And that's just basically looking for average color, average value of the whole form. So if I'm looking at a mountainside, not getting lost in the little nuances, but looking at the overall color cast, temperature, value, and trying to get as close as you can, shooting for the average. And the way I would describe it is if you had a pile of colored paper and you had to cut out and paste pieces of colored paper to make your landscape, so that you know, and in that case you couldn't do halftones and little nuances in between. But doing those exercises, keeping yourself to about 30 minutes on each one with the landscape will help you to start to see the simple silhouette, the abstract shapes. It will also start to hone your compositional sense without really trying to be compositionally clever. You know, you're just trying to put together the shapes. That's helped me a lot. It's also helped me to learn to pull out salient details. You know, say now talking about doing a finished piece, taking those simple shapes and just pushing it a little bit, and you have a finished painting. I think students can get too caught up in getting engrossed in all the little details, and they get so focused on one area of the landscape that they lose the overall relationships. And simple color shape maps like that can help you to keep it clear and to learn to bring out only the details that are necessary.
I'm going to chime in just quickly.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, just a second. Albert, I just want to say something to what he was saying. There's a couple of things that I've discovered that work for me. They may not work for anybody else. The one thing is play. What I find is if I'm feeling stuck, if I feel like I'm not getting far enough, I'll just start playing. I'll start, sometimes I'll just take a brush and some color and I'll just start scribbling on my canvas and ruining the painting, deconstructing it, or take the palette knife out and deconstruct it. And I find that usually I get some kind of a breakthrough. There's something that I hadn't figured out before, that it was because I softened and edged or I pushed something back by accident, that all of a sudden something came alive. Albert, what were you going to say?
I was going to say I agree with Bill completely. If you're interested in the portrait, everything he said is right on. I've done portraits, and when I started working on landscapes, I was in Woodstock, New York, 1970 to 1983. I couldn't wait until the greens of summer disappeared so I could see the skeleton of my trees. And I went out there and drew the trees with pencil and two-ply Bristol board. And I did one after the other. And that's how I was able to get into trees, for whatever it's worth.
All right, good.
I think one other thing that can't be put aside is that if you feel like you're stuck or you aren't going as fast as you would like to master some area, think about taking either a workshop or a video class. And I would suggest you only take them from artists that you really admire, who are something similar to what you want to be like. That can shake you up and make you things that look in a different way, and take you out of the way you always do things. If you listen to the instructor and try something new and different, that can really stop that kind of downward slide you can feel. And I still take I have taken tons of workshop, and I still take workshops.
How many of you who teach workshops have had students come to your workshops and then they don't do anything you teach them?
I have. They just go back to what they feel comfortable in, because they don't want to look like a fool. They know what they can get by with.
Right.
But that's not what workshops should be about, making a masterpiece. It should be about playing and learning something new and experimenting and not having expectations.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you have to embrace the pain. When we get uncomfortable, we get frustrated, we just want to give up. But that's usually when the breakthrough is about to hit. And
Absolutely.
The mistake I made, it was good and bad, is first off, when I first started studying, I studied under two completely different people simultaneously. One was Camille Preswatic, the other was Charles White. They couldn't be more different. Charles White renders things very carefully, very exact, and Camille's a colorist, and she's loose and free, and it kind of screwed up my brain. And then when I got into producing these videos, the 600 videos later, I'd go to all of your shoots in many cases, and and then I'm changing my palette, and I just keep, so I want to do what Albert does, I want to do what Stephanie does, and so I think that the idea is, I like that idea of kind of stabilize on something, get something that you're really going to try and master, whether it's a style. You don't want to copy anybody, but you want to learn the things that they have to offer. Joe McGurl gave me a hard time about that, because he said, you're all over the road. 1 minute you're David LaFell and the next minute you're me. And why don't you just learn what I've taught you and just practice that for a couple of years. Don't change your palette. Don't do anything. Just practice that. And when I did that, that's when I started getting unsolicited compliments. And so I still fall into that a little bit where it's like, oh, I think, Jill uses this color, I'll add that color. But at some point, I think you have to kind of stabilize and go in a direction. Thoughts?
I agree.
Yes. Just to piggyback on what you said, if you work on one thing at a time, it's better than trying to do everything. And what I mean by that is, if I'm starting a painting and I want to really focus on getting good edges, but I want the values good, and of course the design has to be there, and I can try to incorporate everything, or I could do an exercise and say, my biggest problem right now is edges. So let me practice edges. And so you just sort of chunk it. That if you work on one thing at a time, if you're a musician, and you're trying to increase your speed, you work on speed exercises. So if you're an artist and you're trying to get better at understanding values, just work on the values. And one thing that was a great breakthrough for me, I no longer make paintings because that puts too much pressure on me. Instead, I'm doing studies or exercises. And if I think of it as a study and an exercise, my internal plan is with every painting that I plan to throw it away. I do that with 2/3 of them anyway, even when I don't plan on that. So if I plan on getting rid of it, then I can experiment and work on things. And lo and behold, I can always change my mind and say, this one's pretty good. I think that I will send this one out into the world instead of the circular file.
Yeah.
To that point, that idea of chunk learning, there's research on that. When I was taking guitar lessons and trying to learn the scale, my instructor didn't say, learn the whole scale. He'd say, play this note over and over until you get that note. Now add that note. Now go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to the point where you can do it in your sleep. Then he'd say, okay, what are the next two notes? And he'd add those next two notes. And then he'd say, combine them together. So that idea of chunk learning is, they have proven now that Malcolm Gladwell wasn't completely right. It's not about 10,000 hours. It's about, if you can chunk learn something, you can learn faster, which is why when you're watching a course and you see something, rewind it and look again, say, okay, now let me try it. When you're watching Pastel Live, you're like, okay, I'm going to paint along. I'm going to try this. I'm going to rewatch it. And then I'm going to rewatch it again in 6 months or a year and see how I'm doing, and just keep practicing back and forth. Those are the things that will really elevate you fast, I think. Okay, so next question is, this is kind of Zen, I suppose, but why do you paint?
Because what I wanted to do all my life. Ever since I was little, it's the only thing that interested me. I mean, I got good grades. I did well in college and academia, but I did well in advertising. But all the time in the back of my mind was, I want to paint. I want to paint.
Why? Why?
How can you say what the why is? It was the only thing, what I always say, it's the only place my brain doesn't constantly whir and think about, spin and think about other things I should be doing or organizing, or it's the place where I feel calm and
awesome.
Nirvana. And even when I'm doing a crappy painting, I feel like that.
Albert, why do you paint?
Why do I paint? I don't think I have a choice about it. I sense I could have been good when I was younger. I used to draw on the streets of Brooklyn with chalk, and people told me I was a good artist, and I needed that. And when I did Santa Claus in the public school, they told me I was a good artist, and I needed that. I was considered slow and overly protected. and not expected to do much with my life. In other words, being a doctor or a lawyer, it was beyond my abilities.
This is you're talking about from your parents?
Yeah,
Okay.
we come
So
from a
you found
three-room
something that you
apartment house.
excelled, you found something you excelled at, you got positive feedback, and that's what drove you.
Yeah, that was the one thing I could say, to hell with it all. I'm going to do it. And I did it.
Awesome. By the way, I want to say hello to Scotland and New Zealand. I see in the comments, I'm sure there's people all over the world. Aaron, why do you paint?
What do I paint? Yeah, again, it's one of those very, very difficult questions to answer. I wish I could say that I was like a Zen kind of calm person, but I'm not. There's a lot of chatter, a lot of noise up here that happens, and the only thing I find that really quiets the chatter is artistic expression, and primarily painting. I also act, do theater, and write, and that also kind of quiets the clutter here, gets me focused on something else. And I was thinking about, just as a way of maybe a way of illustrating that, over the past handful of years, I've been doing these crazy trips where I backpack my painting gear. I've painted my way across the Grand Canyon. I've painted across the Beartooth Mountains in Montana. Generally every summer I do at least one long solo trip, up to about 6 days, painting and backpacking many miles into grizzly country, and I think about it, and it's like, this is a crazy way to get work done, right? I mean,
You're by yourself.
let's go 26 miles over a mountain range or across the Grand Canyon. Like, it doesn't make any sense really to do this. There are much easier ways to get paintings. And, I started thinking about, like, why do I do this? It's not about, for me, it's not some heroic thing. It's not like, give me a, Red Bull or Mountain Dew and like, look at me, I'm this tough guy. It's not at all about that. It's that when I get 2 or 3 days into the wilderness, it is so completely immersive that the creative process is all there is, and I can't think about anything else. So I am willing to go through any kind of pain to carry a 60-pound pack if I can get to that place that I will truly be quiet. And for me, it takes that much work. And so painting's where I find that. And then the other side of that is, there's the question of, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. I ask, if I make a painting and hide it from you, is it still art, or is it just therapy? So the other part of the equation, like, why do I paint? It's the relationship. It's the way that I start a story that is incomplete, and it's the best I could tell it. And usually I'm a little bit frustrated because that's not exactly what I wanted to say with the painting. And somehow the viewer comes into it and they have their own experience, their own stories, their own memories, and they come into it and they finish the story with their own experience. And the portal is art. And to me, that's like, how do you explain that? That's so amazing to be able to have that emotional connection, sometimes with people you're never going to meet. And so I feel like, okay, if people are happy to let me keep trying to tell these stories, to start these things off that they can finish, I'm going to keep going with it.
That's one of the best feelings in the world, is to be the fly on the wall in the gallery and not tell anybody that you're the artist, and just listen to how people respond. Sometimes you don't want to hear it, but sometimes, you hear, they start crying because it reminds them of something in their life. Bill, what about you? Why do you do this?
Because it's the most interesting thing possible.
Wow.
I had a very successful pension consulting business, and we're managing many billions of dollars. But everything I needed to know, I learned sort of in the first 3 years, and then after that, it was just repeating stuff. With art, it never ends. There is a great quote from somebody, and I don't remember who it was, but you know, an artist in their late 80s on their deathbed, and said, "So soon, I was just starting to understand." And, you know, it never ends. You know, you go over a hill, and there's another hill in front of you,
Yeah.
so you can always get better. And
I hear this a lot. I hear this a lot from people who are surgeons, people who are dentists, people, you know, a lot of doctors who are taking up painting because it's the same thing. You know, I learned it in medical school. I got really good at it over 10 years. And after that, it's like Groundhog Day every day. And thank goodness we have people who do that. I don't want to diminish that, but I like the idea of the challenge that you're right. There's never a perfect day, or very rarely a perfect day. You're always pushing yourself, always getting to the next level. I want to ask Carrie if Carrie has any questions from the audience. I don't know if she does. Carrie, you want to do a quick check-in, and then we're going to step off and do something for our sponsor real quickly. Carrie?
Yeah, sure. So we've got, I mean, there's quite a few questions, and you guys have actually done a really good job of actually answering these through your talk, which is pretty good. So some of them pertain to, you know, there's marketing ones, there's ones of, you know, how do I get started? One that I found kind of interesting, and I don't know fully if you guys touched on it, but a couple of people have asked, you know, what do you do when you're in a rut? Like you can't get out of the block that you're in, you're just stuck and you don't know how to move forward. How do you, do you just keep painting every day? Do you have a method for how you try to get out of that rut? What are some of the ways that you guys would try to answer that question for them?
Who wants to take it?
I can.
Right.
I go back to what I said earlier. If I'm feeling sort of stuck, I try to identify what specifically am I stuck with. Is it shapes? Is it value? Is it edge? Is it design? And then I would pick somebody that I think is really good, you know, a sergeant, and say, how did he deal with that? And I find that in moments when I'm stuck, that's why I keep copying Masterworks to this day. I get sort of stuck, and then I go back to the fountain and copy somebody. And it doesn't have to be a whole painting. It's just maybe, how did he treat this eye? Or what did he do with the edge of a shadow where it goes into the halftone? It can be little simple things, and maybe you spend 15 minutes, but I find that that gets the creative juices flowing again. You know, we have to put stuff into the computer in order to get something out of it. And, you know, we need a repertoire of things that we have seen, observed, loved, whatever, as the input so that we can come out with a painting.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else want to touch on that?
No, I feel like I'm really lucky that I work in basically two mediums, oil and pastel. And as I've said on your show before, Eric, when I get really pissed off at my pastels, I work in oil as if it's the pastel's fault. You know, I go back and forth between them, and now I'm starting to work some in gouache. And each one of them teaches me something about the other. They're all pretty much layered the same way. You start with the dark and build to the light. So they're different mediums, but there's still an application similarity. And it frees me up from whatever I was having a trouble with in the other
What would you say? What would you say to somebody who's like, well, hey, I could spend my whole life just focusing on my watercolor or my oil. Why would I possibly ever bother to pick up pastel, for instance?
Well, I can understand that because for years I was watercolorist for like 25 years. But it was when I actually tried some different mediums that I started to grow. I started to see color in a different way. I started to understand how to layer things, you know, what value really means. I learned so much from the different ones. I think there's a problem if you're if you're working in 67 different mediums and they're all applied a different way, like watercolor, it's basically you work to the dark instead of work to the light. But I think each medium can give you a little information. But I really do just stick between oil and pastel for my gallery paintings, for plein air painting, all that kind of stuff. But dabbling in something else can get you out of a rut.
Okay, I'm going to ask Albert the same thing, because you do oil and pastel. You said that you started out as an oil painter, and we all think of you as a pastel painter, but you do both beautifully. Why would somebody who's an oil painter even consider doing pastel? I think they're
day. Remember that every day. And after a while, I just didn't want to paint that day. It was a block, if you wish. And what I started doing and have done was draw with pencil and 2-ply Bristol board. And one day, it was in 1966, I got into this block, and I was going to have a show at the ACA Gallery in New York City in September. I said, oh my God. And then something came up from inside of me that said pastel. So I called up Dan Green and Harvey Dinnerstein and all the folks who are my friends who are a little older than me. They told me, buy this, buy that. And I bought this and I bought that. And it was a wonderful opening. Because pastel, a few things. It's a drawing, painting medium, much more so than oils. At least that's what I found. No comparison. And also, I'm used to resinous darks with oils, and you can't get that with pastel. I'm used to color mixing with oils, and if you put too much white in it, it becomes chalky. I was not chalky at all. So it was like a whole, now this time I could paint. So I had no tapes.
Yeah.
I had no tapes. And now I switch backwards and forwards with the two medium. I usually work on location on plein air with pastel, smaller, 12 by 16, 14 by 18, blah, blah. And I don't worry if I finished it or not. I just do it. And the way I find my material, this is landscape now. I don't like to drive for a long time. If I'm going to paint in Taos, I would sleep in Taos tonight. Taos is an hour and 10 minutes. I walk towards the waterfall, and if something hits me en route, I really take that very seriously. I always have my eyes open. And when something hits me, it means something out there is touching something inside of me. So you see how vague this is as compared to portrait work, which I've done. So I've become more intuitive, and I switch mediums. I work larger with oils in the studio, and I turn my pastels and my other stuff into shells, and I turn them around, and I can work with pastel and oil in the studio. Some of the plein air paintings I don't touch at all. Some of them I throw away, and some of them I do some work on after I have a fresh look at it. So this is not so much right and wrong. I wish it was. I wish it was.
All right.
There's no Z in this alphabet. I wish there was.
Awesome. Bill, when we did Pastel Live, we launched it 2 years ago. I felt obligated to learn how to do pastel because here I am asking people to learn pastel and I wasn't doing it myself. And so I got pastel and I started playing with it. And then I watched, basically as much as I could when I was working on that. And it's like it all assimilated. I didn't become a master overnight. I'm not suggesting anybody could, but it assimilated. And I started seeing things that I could do and I could only do with pastel that I couldn't do with oil. But the thing that I found really interesting is that all of a sudden it changed my technique in oil. It opened up new horizons, things that I had never thought of doing because I had learned about them on Pastel Live. What is your experience with that and the oil versus pastel? Because you do both too.
Basically the same experience. I tell all of my oil painting students, you should study pastel as well, because there are certain things you can do in pastel that are extraordinarily easy, that are difficult in oil. But once you see them in pastel, you want to accomplish that in the other medium. I'll give you a quick example. I blend with my pastels, so all of my edges in pastel are automatically soft, and I have to think to make a sharp edge. In oil, if you make a stroke, it's going to have a sharp edge, and you have to think to make it soft. So it's 180 degrees different. But in pastel, you get used to seeing all these soft edges, and in oil, you get used to seeing all of these hard edges. And if you do both mediums, then you end up with a more balanced approach on edges. In oil painting, it's easy as pie to get a thin, transparent, rich dark. You can take transparent oxide brown, little bit of ultramarine blue, add some medium to it, and you've got a thin, transparent dark. For pastel, it's difficult, but once you see it in oil, you want to see it in pastel. And so it forces the artist to grow maybe in directions that are not easy based on the medium, but doing both of them, you get a more well-rounded approach to things. So anyway, that's what I have found.
Okay, Aaron,
taken up both of those mediums who said, nope, I really should have just spent my time on one.
Yeah. Aaron?
Let me go back real quick to the question before about feeling stuck, and then because I was just thinking about a time in my 30s that kind of emotionally was just a really tough time. I was feeling really low, feeling really stuck, feeling like my work was terrible, and that I was getting nowhere. And it's funny because I look back on that years later and I realized that was the breakthrough. It was not the moment of breakthrough. It was the moment of just lasting through that period of frustration and feeling down.
It was pre-breakthrough.
Yeah, well, no, it was the breakthrough. I just didn't recognize it until later.
I see.
So, so what I think about is in terms of feeling stuck or kind of being in tune with your feelings on painting, like take stock of them. Coaching, and I love coaching new people because they are just making these gains week by week, boom, boom, boom. They're getting better at new skills. And then there's a certain point where where making those gains takes a lot more time and a lot more patience. And so it can feel like, God, I'm not getting anywhere, but you are if you're putting the time in. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling down about your work, have a look at those feelings, greet those feelings, say, yep, this is real, but recognize that you might look at it differently a little bit later. Because yeah, absolutely. Like, I think, my most award-winning piece that I'd had in my entire career was done at my lowest point. And I didn't realize it until later. So just push through, and then recognize that as you mature as an artist, the growth is going to start coming slower because it's the littler and littler things. Your acuity of vision is getting greater, and so it's going to be harder to feel like you're having a moment of breakthrough or growth.
There's one value in just knowing that it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
That what you're going through, this idea of being depressed or being stuck or being frustrated, it's just part of the process. It's part of life.
Yep. Yep.
And okay, now talk to me about oil versus pastel, because you do both.
Yep.
What are the pros and cons of that?
It's a funny thing, because I wish, I'll even, like, I'm just about to go to the Door County plein air, leaving on Saturday. And every once in a while, like, I'm packing for a plein air show like that. And I think, all right, maybe this time I should just pack one medium. Everybody else is just working in one medium, but I'm packing pastel and oil, just because it's like I have these two muses, and sometimes one is hitting and one is working, and one is not. Like, I think back to the last 2 years of Laguna plein air. 2 years ago, I was super frustrated with my pastels, and my oils were just, I was making discoveries. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing more oils on this one. And then the next year it was the opposite. So I've learned not to fight with it too much. I think part of the reason I got into oil was that the workshops that were available to me when I was learning, I would just take whatever would come up to Montana, and it was always oil painters. So I started doing oil because, kind of that's what the workshop instructors were, that were available. But I find that, you learn from pastel, making color commitments in pastel because you have to, like saying, okay, this is as close as I have to the color of that mountain. I'm just going to put it down, and then I'm going to react to what's there. And so then I put a stroke down and I say, okay, is that too bright, too warm, too cool? How do I play around and experiment? And at the start of every painting, I feel a sense of despair because I feel like this, I don't have enough palette. I don't have enough colors. This isn't going to work. And then I start playing around and layering, and suddenly somehow it does. So I can carry that color boldness into my oil work, because oil you can tend to mix and mix and mix so that it becomes tentative. So pastel has taught me to be more bold in my color choices with oil. Oil has taught me to attend to edges more, because you have to work harder to get a variety of edge work in oil. So each medium has taught me something about the other medium.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Carrie.
Yes. Hi. So we have a couple of questions. So for, obviously, with oil paints, watercolor, acrylic, you blend your colors together to get different colors. You've got the color wheel. You can start with primary, move to secondary, and it's easier because you can blend the colors together to get what you want. With pastel, it's quite a bit harder, because I know from my own experience that if you don't have the right color, sometimes it can turn the painting into something different. Since all of you guys are oil painters, but also pastel, how do you kind of overcome that issue of, do I have the right color? Have you found a way to blend your pastels together to get the color you need? Or do you just keep growing your palette so that you have the colors you need whenever you need them?
Or does it matter?
Can I take that one?
Yeah.
You can do with oils by putting some white into it and all that. With pastels, you can't. There's two things that I do. I make use of a lot of different colors of similar value, which takes the value which might be correct, let's say, and rounds it out so it's not just one color. As far as darkness and lightness goes, I have found by varying the pressure, my dark colors can get a little lighter and fit right in there if I vary the pressure just a touch. And I think pastelers are doing that if they know it or not. And this is true with light colors. If it's too bright, just relax a little bit with the same piece of chalk and put it on with less emphasis, and it gets darker. This is something. I found this for me a revelation. That's my answer.
Okay.
Realize there's more than one color to each pastel stick.
All right.
And
Great.
darker colors can get lighter by varying the pressure, and lighter colors, white and all that, can get a bit darker by going lighter with the application. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you, Albert. All right. So we're going to take a quick break here from the group, and then you guys, I want you to think about this for a couple minutes. When we come back, don't answer it now, but when we come back, I want you to think about this question. What is the single most important piece of advice that anyone ever gave you or that you're willing to give another artist? You all think about it. We're gonna just tell everybody about something coming up real quick, and then so give it some thought, and we'll hold that for when you come back. Now, I want to tell you guys that we've got some gifts, we got some prizes, but related to the topic, I want to show you a couple of things. The first off is that a question I get all the time is there time? You know, some people are starting out in their 40s or 50s, and you know, I went to a cocktail party with Fred Ross, Peter Trippi, Jacob Collins, and I was in my late 40s, and I asked that question, is there time? Jacob's answer is no, there's not time, because you need to start out in your teens or 20s to become a world-class artist. Other people disagreed with that. I think that the most important thing to ask yourself is, am I getting value out of painting? Is it making me happier? Is it satisfying something for me? And if it is, will you become Albert Handel in 20 years? No, you're not going to become that, but you can become you, and you can apply yourself. You look at somebody like Bill Schneider or Jill, who essentially had careers. They stepped out of those careers and they still took the time, and they're very happy. So I think that that's an important thing. Now, one thing to understand is that there is a process to learning. And we talked a little bit about that chunk learning that Bill and I were talking about. And you can follow that practice. And that is, if you find mentors, you find people that you can study under, you find courses, and you study them, you keep going back to them, you can do it. The one mistake that we all have is that we were taught when we were kids, anybody want to put this in the comments? Practice makes what? Well, we were all told when we were kids that practice makes perfect, but that's not true. Practice makes permanence. And so if you have imperfect practice, you will have imperfect permanence. It's the same with golf. It's the same with art. It's the same with anything. And so you want to make sure that you're getting really good leadership, good instruction, people who are good mentors, because perfect practice makes permanent. So if you can get people to teach you the right way to do things, then it'll be better off. Now, there's this process of chunk learning where you learn something, you study it really like crazy. Like Bill was saying, you want to focus on how to do edges. You just do edges, and then you practice and practice and practice. And then you get some course correction. You get somebody to say, oh, here's where you're making some mistakes. And then you practice again. That repetition matters. And so what we learned is that a lot of us need more repetition. If you have one day of repetition or one part of a day, if you have a month of repetition, if you practice something over and over again, it'll make a huge difference. So practice and chunk learning, I think, is really the key to things. There is a process which I like to call immersion. And this is something that I learned. It was something that I never understood, but I went to a course at Harvard, of all things, and it was an immersion class. It was a business class. And they said, and they made this claim, and the claim was, we're going to teach you things that would take you 10 years to learn on your own, and we're going to teach it to you in a very short period of time. Now, what they did is they put us in, and we were in early in the morning till late at night. We did that several days in a row. We were exhausted. But what happened is when we got exhausted, we actually opened up we took that resistance away, and we started taking in new suggestion. And that's the process of immersion. And immersion will serve you well if you let it. So what I want to tell you about is something where you're going to be able to get unstuck, get a little bit uncomfortable, and be immersed. And that's Pastel Live. Pastel Live is a 4-day or 3-day conference where you learn pastel from morning till night. They're very long days. We don't have long breaks. We basically force you into a lot of study, and we put a lot of different people in there with a lot of different approaches and different styles. But you're also getting that repetition. That repetition is really important. And I think that if you want to do really decent paintings, whether you're a pastel artist or not, you want to try and learn something different. Get out of your comfort zone, move yourself to another place. That doesn't mean you can't continue to be loyal to gouache or watercolor or oil, but I've discovered that if you get out of that comfort zone, it's going to make a big difference. Now, if you're already a pastel painter, then Pastel Live is going to serve you. It's going to give you a shot in the arm. It's going to reinvigorate you. It's going to stimulate new techniques, new approaches. And we all need to learn from the leading masters who will help us practice perfectly. Frankly, if Albert Handel taught all day, every day on Pastel Live for the next 20 years, I'd learn something new every day of my life because he's a wealth of experience. We don't really repeat very many artists in Pastel Live year to year. We repeat Albert because he's such a big and important master, and there's a couple other people we repeat from time to time. But Pastel Live is going to be the 4 best days you're going to spend to get you out of your comfort zone. Now, we're doing this in August, and Pastel Live is the largest, get this, the largest pastel experience on the face of the earth. It is the Super Bowl of pastel. It is a worldwide audience. We have teachers teaching the top pastel artists from all over the world. It is a big event. And that's what I want to tell you about real quickly. If you've not tried pastel, you will see improvement in your painting no matter what you do. Now, we start out with the first day, which is optional, and that's called Essential Techniques Day. You can buy that day inexpensively and just attend that. And we really bring it down to the basic level for somebody who's a complete beginner or somebody who needs a refresher. And we bring in top masters for that day, and they teach you the essential techniques. And then we have on the 17th, 18th, and 19th, we have Pastel Live, which is the main event. That's optional as well. You can just do the Essentials Day, or you can do the main day. But we've had really terrific response. We started these with COVID, and we've continued them because people have begged us to continue them. What you're going to expect is you start out with what I call a fast start. Essentials Day will bring you up to speed very fast. By the end of that day, you're clearly going to understand everything about pastel painting. And then when you go into the next days, you're going to have an in-depth understanding of the people, and they're going to take it to the next level and show you tricks and techniques and things that will make you better. We have 25 instructors on the full event, national and international artists, and 3 days of demonstration on the full event. Now, if you're happy with your progress, you don't need this. If you're not happy with your progress, this is going to help stimulate you. If you set aside a one full 24-hour period of time to just learn, just to study, you'd be amazed at how much it will help you. But if you're self-studying and you don't have other people stimulating that, then you're not going to make as much progress. We're giving you 24 hours of instruction. You're going to have access to the top instructors, meaning you can ask them questions, you can interact with them, and this will help you increase your level. You will increase your level. Now, if you've attended before, you might be saying, well, this is just a repeat of before. but it's not. This is completely different. It's different every time. Well, you might say, well, I haven't learned. I haven't used what I learned. Well, did you want to learn it? Did you want to use what you learned? And if you haven't, you might want to come back and get yourself reinvigorated. And you might say, well, I haven't found the time to practice. Look, you have to make the time, but you will learn, even if you saw it before, even if you saw it twice before, you're going to learn new things. You're going to be reminded of things. You know, when we have this, this state of learning, we can't see everything until we get to the next level. And when we get to the next level, all of a sudden we see something we saw before, and now all of a sudden for the first time we understand it. So I ask you, do you want to grow further, or do you want to just pick up one thing? I mean, one thing might revolutionize your painting. If you don't do pastel, doing new things will pull you out of a rut. You'll discover techniques that you can apply to your own medium. There are times when only pastel is going to give you the effect you want. I've discovered that. And most great artists master more than one medium, or sometimes all the mediums. We're going to give you immersive learning. You are just going to be like swimming in pastel for 4 days. You will make rapid progress. Now, you're not going to become a master in 4 days. I want to dispel that myth. You will learn the techniques, and everything you retain is going to be there, but we're going to be loading you up with solutions to problems. And you will find, as I have found, I'm out there painting and I haven't thought about a technique that somebody taught me, and all of a sudden I've got a problem, and that technique floats to the top of my brain because I saw it on Pastel Live. So you're going to get that repetition for that depth of understanding. You're going to be able to interact with fellow artists. We have ways that you get to connect with them, breakout rooms. We have a paint along cocktail party, and you're going to see different styles. You'll see people who paint loose, people who paint tight, people who paint colorful, people who paint muted, and you will see a transformation. As a matter of fact, I guarantee it. I put my reputation on that guarantee. Susan Hunter-Guys says, I have to admit that as an oil painter, I was kind of ho-hum about pastels, but now I'm hooked. Maybe you don't want to be hooked, but I wanted to learn it and master it. I haven't mastered it yet, but I'm a whole lot better than I was. Donna McKee says this program is worth every dollar. Every class has been incredible. The presenters are great and generous with their time and talent, and I've learned so much. So Pastel Live has got a world-class faculty. We spend pretty much a whole year getting this faculty together, and they're all different. So this world-class faculty is people from all over the world. We have Peter Adams, former president of the California Art Club, fantastic pastel artist. We have Tom Bailey. And as you can already see, there's a whole complete difference in approaches and styles. You're going to learn how to do different subject matters like florals, Laurie Basham, for instance. Or you're going to be learning just different ways to do landscape painting like Greg Barnes and Fiona Carvel. So you can look at these techniques and say, I look at them and go, how did that person figure out how to do that in pastel? And yet they're doing it. Stephanie Clark, who was on my show just yesterday, blew everybody away. We have Emma Colbert. Look at the detail, the depth of that versus some of the other approaches. If that's what you want to learn, you're going to find that. Here's Margaret Dwyer. You have Julie Freeman, and you have Jerry Greenberg. Albert Handel, the great pastel master, is going to be teaching you. You have Casey Klon, completely different approaches. Isabel Lim, a lot of color, a lot of different things to do here. Jessica Masters. And then you have Andrew McDermott, Corey Pitkin, Laura Pollock, Bill Schneider, William A. Schneider, Aaron Schur. Look at the brilliance of color. I don't know if you can do that with oil. And Wendy Shalin, Teresa Saya, Gail Sibley, Christine Swan. So you're learning portraiture. You're going to be learning still life, Vienna Sabo, and of course, Jill Stephanie Wagner. And so again, we got a lot of people who love this. Great introduction to pastels. Changed my mind completely about adding pastels to my painting repertoire. Can't wait to learn more from Sherry. Cheryl says, thanks for an amazing, interesting, and challenging day. I'm just amazed. I'm so glad I took 2 days off from school to participate fully. So as you can see, We get a lot of positives on this. People ask us to keep it alive after COVID, which we did. And surprisingly, our numbers went up last year, and it looks like they're going to go up even more this year. So Pastel Live is going to be a wonderful experience for you. And I'm going to give you, because you attended the webinar today, I'm going to give you a special offer and fast action bonuses worth over $1,000. So stay tuned for that. It's just coming up in a second. If you sign up for Pastel Live today, you're going to receive a free gift, but I'm also going to give away other prizes at the end of the webinar for everybody watching. Now, if you attended Pastel Live in the past, you might be thinking, those were COVID times and I'm busy now. And I get that. My answer is everybody has told me that during COVID, they discovered something about themselves. They discovered that they weren't taking enough time for themselves. They weren't spending enough time on their art. They were not paying attention to their own personal needs. They were paying attention to everything else, their jobs. If you forgot about that because you're back to work, you're working hard, don't forget to do things for yourself. Don't be all work and no play. You need to do something that you love, something that helps you. As some of the artists said, this helps me forget my busy mind. And so I think there's a lot of reasons you might want to think about attending, but I think Pastel Live is the best way to learn. You don't have to mess with anything. If you've never painted before, it's like, sophisticated coloring book, right? It's really terrific in terms of the best way to learn. You don't have to mess with oils or brushes or cleaning things. You just have the colors, you grab the colors, and you can go to the next step. So who wants to get better in the comments? Do you want to grow to another level? One of the things that I alluded to earlier is that we just can't do it alone. And dealing with top artists for the last 2 decades, the very best have gone to solutions that give them the best success. And they're always striving to get better, and they have always turned to others to help them get there. That's true. Everybody has coaches. The best athletes have coaches. The best artists. Jill was just saying she still goes to workshops. The best people go the furthest and become the biggest when they have coaches and they're already learning and growing. And of course, some of us want to sell our work. And, there's a looming economy around the corner maybe. So, if you want to sell your work, you've got to give yourself the best advantage so that you can sell. You're going to learn 5 key things on Pastel Live. You're going to learn a new medium that's going to invigorate you, pull you out of your rut. It'll make your painting better. You're going to see a transformation in just 3 days. You're going to meet and dialogue with other artists. You're going to have things implanted in your brain, and you will find things about yourself. Now, the reality is you're at a crossroad, right? And the crossroad is I am either happy where I am or I want to push myself to the next level. And maybe you're not a pastel artist, but you still want to push yourself to the next level. You want to learn something new. You get to pick, all right? You can stay where you are, and you could continue to work like you're doing. You could continue to attend a workshop once in a while over the next 10 years. But if you compress, if you get that repetition, and if you force yourself to learn these techniques, everything's going to come faster and come easier for you, get you where you want to do. So you can either sit by and do nothing and hope that something changes, or you can increase your chance of success. 3 days with top masters, a 4th day with a beginner day, and it's going to make a big difference. And Pastel Live is the largest pastel event in the world, and people are learning, growing, expanding from all over the world. We hear from people everywhere. And a high majority of the people who attend in the previous year always sign up for the next year and the next year. They keep coming back. Why would that be? Now, when you're home alone behind an easel, there's nobody else in your life. You go in and say, hey, I want to talk about cadmium yellow. They're like, what are you talking about? You need to be around people that understand your struggle, people who understand what you're going through. You have the same issues in common, and you need to meet other people, and you're going to meet people here, hang out with people. Experiencing the group and the community is really a big deal. And if you stop and think about how much time you spent deliberately learning in the last year, you might find it's not very much. We just don't take the time. We're busy. Sometimes we don't take the time to paint. But total immersion for 3 days is going to give you a big advantage. Believe me, I've done it. I continue to do it. It helps. You don't get a premier education quickly. Nobody becomes a master in 3 or 5 days or even 6 months, and sometimes not in 60 years. But you implant these ideas in your head, you learn them, you watch them, they're going to come back to you when you need them. So knowing the solutions to problems is going to solve a lot of the problems. Now, you want to learn pastel by yourself, it's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of time. So anyway, you come to Pastel Live, you're going to get a war chest. We're going to give you tools, and this is going to be really help you. And you could go to art school and you could go to a 4-year program, but they make things, they spread them out for the group, right? You can learn a lot of what you learn in art school in a very compressed time if you were doing it by yourself. And this is a great way to get compressed, and you don't have to spend 50 grand a year for art school. So let me just show you again real quickly. We got Pastel Live. We have the Essential Techniques Day on the 16th. We have the main event on the 17th. And then we have a total of 4 days if you want those. The special price for you, this is just for you on the webinar. This is not for anybody else. And that is, I'm giving you a special discount. So the full retail price, people at the very last minute are going to pay $897 to attend Pastel Live. On the website today, still, you can get in for $397. That's a good deal. That's actually a very good deal. But the webinar only price today, and it expires at midnight tonight, is $347, right? So you're going to save $50. No big deal. It's $50. It's lunch, right? But I'm also got the Essential Techniques Day, which is $297 and very worth it. On the website today, you can buy it for $197. But today, if you sign up today before midnight, I'm going to give you Essential Techniques Day for free. So automatically, you're going to save the money. Now, when you go to the website, you're going to see 3 prices. And these are the older prices, and you're going to see the new prices on what we're sending you. But you will see that there are 3 options for you. One is a general admission ticket, which is normally $347, or is now $347. You're going to see a premier, which gives you 60 days of replay, and you're going to see a VIP, which gives you a year of replay. So those are on the website, but your website only price today for the general admission is $347, and you get Beginner's Day absolutely free. Now, there's more though, and that is that if you sign up within the next 30 minutes or 30 minutes from when this webinar ends, I'm going to give you a bunch of bonuses. Bonus number 1 is a video with Alan J. Picard from Pastel Live 21. It's a $200 value. I'm going to give you bonus number 2 is Clarence A. Porter from 21, $197 value. Number 3, by the way, you can't buy these anywhere. Number 3 is Terry Ford from the Plein Air Convention, Pastel, $197 value. Number 5 is Ray Hassard from the convention in 2017. So you're getting all these bonuses, which is worth $985 extra dollars. And so, there's one I forgot. Bonus number 4. The slides were in the wrong order. And that's Christine Dabrowski. So you get all of these artists, $985 if you sign up in the next 30 minutes. There's no risk. We have a 100% money back guarantee. Our rule is if you watch it and you don't like it, let us know by the end of the first day. We'll refund your money. That's how it works. We want you to trust us and know that we're good for our word. So you've got the next 30 minutes, and we've popped up something on your screen. And also, if you sign up in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to give away randomly, I'm going to give away 3 VIP upgrades. That means whatever you buy, we're going to give you a VIP upgrade. If you buy the VIP upgrade anyway, we're going to give you the equivalent value. So 3 VIP upgrades at random in the next 30 minutes. Now, you're going to get a personal transformation. And I think that transformation will have a big impact on your life. And we really want you to have that transformation. That's why we're here. That's why these artists are here. They're trying to help you. I guarantee your success. And if you don't get it, you can get your money back. And I haven't had to give much money back ever, maybe one time, because One guy thought it was about modern painting for some reason. So anyway, remember you're at a crossroads, and you could be part of the Super Bowl of pastel, part of the largest pastel event in the world, and you get to watch and ask questions from top masters. And you can watch all the comments on social media later, and you can say, well, you know what? I really wish I hadn't missed out on that, and I wish I had taken that price, because you're going to see all the people talking about it, and you go, I could have been there. I wish I could be there. Now, if you hit the buy button now in the next 30 minutes, and you decide to talk to your spouse or somebody about it, and you say, I signed up for this, and they say, hey, we really can't put that on our credit card right now. You guys can discuss it. You have up until our cancellation date, which is about 2 weeks from now. You can cancel at any time with no penalty. So you go ahead and hold it now. That way you preserve this price. Otherwise, on the website tomorrow, you're going to pay full price. Actually, on the website today, if you're not watching this. So this is an opportunity for you now. So go ahead and click the buy button now. You can put your credit card in. You can do PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay. And the other thing is that Shop Pay allows you to have a payment plan. So you'll see Shop Pay, click that button. And that gives you a payment plan. And you can pay in installments. Now, that'll be 2 weeks installments with no interest, because there's only so much time left. So anyway, that's what we've got for you. And so you've got the next 30 minutes, and it'll be 30 minutes from the time the webinar ends. I'm going to go back to our guests right now, and we're going to ask that big question of them, and that is, what's the very best advice that you have for any artist, and maybe the best advice that you ever got. So let's get everybody back on here. And all right, gang, first off, let me ask you this. What are your impressions? And I guess, what happened? I'm fired? I heard somebody say you're fired. Bill, you've taught on Pastel Live, but interestingly enough, you stayed the whole time you attended. What are your thoughts about it?
My main thought is 4,000 weeks. And what does that mean? 4,000 weeks is the average lifespan of a human. Not all that much time. And so you kind of have to grab things that you want, rather than saying, well, once I get all of my life in order, then I'll do the thing that I want to do. If we don't do it now, 4,000 weeks goes by pretty quickly.
Well, and especially these days.
Yes. So I think that we always have to make decisions, and each decision that we make blocks out other possible decisions. But rather than agonizing about things and delaying and putting it off and trying to avoid making a decision, I say just go for it.
I'll tell you two stories, two very true stories. One was this woman came to Fall Color Week, and she said, I've seen your ads for years. I've always wanted to come. But I never came. I was always too busy, but I decided to come. And so she had a great time, and she's like, oh, we're going to see you next year. She got home, and 3 weeks later, she died. And so she came, and I feel so good about that. And then I had a similar situation, somebody at the plein air convention. They said it was kind of the opposite. I had a sick husband. I couldn't come, and I had to take care of him. And then he died, and I finally got to come. So it wasn't, thankfully she didn't die. But I think that, when you get that opportunity, grab it. These days, with everything that we've all been through in the last 3 years, you just don't know what we're going to face. And so we all need to be working on our experiences. I'm taking people to Japan this year. I'm taking people, I'm working on other trips because I want to get all the experiences in I can before I drop. Who knows when that'll be. But hopefully I'll be like Albert and live to be 150 years old. Albert, what are your thoughts?
Thoughts is very simple. My father used to say it. Shit or get off the pot.
I love it.
And I'm 86 and not 106. But I'll tell you,
You're just like
I feel just fine. What?
well, you and I go painting together, and you have more energy than I have. So more power to you. And Jill, what are you thinking?
Well, I was really lucky to have a father who inspired his three daughters to go for it. He told us that we could do anything we wanted. All we had to do was work hard enough.
Yep.
And we all believed him. And we all went on to nice big careers. But I think part of that has to be your own self-talk, your own, letting your own needs and wants be available to yourself instead of holding back. So, you know, saying to yourself, I can do this. I can move forward. I can finally take the time for me and become what I want to be. I mean, that's what I did. I sold my agency midstream, and I just said, this isn't what's making me happy. What will make me happy? I have to go for it now, and it has to come from your heart.
And I know
Advice is great.
I know you were making a lot of money, and you walked away from all of that.
I wasn't making a lot of happiness anymore, though.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. You were in stress. Okay, Aaron, what do you want to say?
We're talking about why to sign up for the Pastel Live.
Only if you want to.
I just say prepare for surprise. I think the thing I love about getting in the pastel community is there's such a diversity of techniques and approaches to the medium. And I am still constantly surprised when I hang out with other pastelists by how they approach the medium. And so I'm always learning things. So this is a chance to see a whole bunch of different approaches to the medium.
Okay, so I'm going to get in a second. I'm going to get to the big question, but real quickly, if you have not left a comment in the comments section, do so. So I'm going to give away, even though you guys won't get a commission on these, I'm going to give away one copy of Jill Stephanie Wagner's 5-step pastel painting video. I'm going to give away, these are all digital. I'm going to give away one Pastel Painting Secrets by William A. Schneider. I'm going to give away one Mastering Pastels with Albert Handel. And I'm going to give away, which is coming soon, hasn't been released yet, doesn't even have a title, and that's the new video from Aaron Schur. Aaron was just in the studio recently doing this. So we will pick names from the comments, and then we're going to send out an email later to everybody and just say, okay, here are the people that won. Now, the other thing is anybody who signs up within that next 30 minutes, I am going to give away 3 VIP upgrades to Pastel Live. So you get the 1-year replay, 3 VIP upgrades. So we're going to randomly grab from the people who are signed up. We might be able to have those before we end today. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the big question, the best advice, the most important advice that you can give or that anyone ever gave you as an artist. We're going to start with Albert first.
Dedicate at least 1 hour to dedicate towards drawing. Figure out, you might have to use, my advice is to copy somebody rather than try and work from your own photography. Work for 1 hour, even if it kills you. I mean, you know what I mean. Stay there.
Yeah.
Do it by the clock. But make a conscientious copy of somebody's painting that you like and wish you had done. And stay there for an hour. And the next day, go back and stay there for an hour. No two ways about that hour. No two ways. After a while, I hope the hour becomes an hour and a half. Do this. It's much better than nothing, and it could lead you into something. Good luck.
I think that's great advice. And even if you're sitting around with your family watching television, you can still have a sketch pad in your hand.
No, I don't agree.
Okay, let's hear it.
I don't agree you're sitting around with your family and you're watching TV with a sketch pad. No, I don't believe in that at all. That's
Okay.
not what I said.
All right. I stand corrected.
You're
Okay.
forgiven.
Focus 1 hour. Albert, don't write me out of your will, buddy.
I won't, sweetheart.
All right. Bill?
Do you say Bill or Jill?
I said Bill.
Okay.
Rather than, working for 5 hours on a Sunday and then not doing anything for the rest of the week, it's better if you can only do 15 minutes. When I was still working in my pension consulting business, I forced myself to draw, if only for 15 minutes before I went to sleep at night. And you learn so much more from doing it on a daily basis rather than trying to do it all at once, one day a week, and then ignoring it the other. The days that you're not practicing, you're going backwards. And so if you practice every day, you'll be going forwards.
One of the things I noticed when I was in Russia hanging out with friends is that they always had a sketch pad with them in their pocket. And we'd be standing in line at a grocery store or something, and they're sketching people. And I asked them about it, and they said, you just have to keep your hand-eye coordination alive. You just got to always be drawing.
Yes.
All right. Now we have Jill. Jill?
Well, we all seem to be on the same lane. Draw, draw, draw. There's no getting away from drawing. I have often heard my students say, well, I don't want to draw, I just want to paint. And you can't really get from there to there without drawing. But what I really have found super helpful is going to figure drawing and portrait classes. And not because I want to be a portrait painter or a figure painter, but because if you can realistically capture a body or a likeness, you can probably draw anything. So, if you're off just a smidge on where the eye is positioned, or if you've got a rib coming out the wrong way, the drawing just doesn't work. So I really focus on most of my drawing in that area. The big thing that somebody said to me that really changed the way I looked at my painting was you be you. Quit trying to be somebody else. Just be you.
Okay. All right. Excellent. We promised 7 steps, and we actually touched on each of the 7 steps, but we didn't actually put them in list form here. So I do apologize. But if you go back to your notes, those are the key things, starting with drawing, copying, getting yourself to experimentation, copying masters, etc. Aaron.
Oh.
Whoops. Wait.
Oh. There we go.
Oh. No.
No, I'm really inspired by getting to share this time with all of you guys, and I'm taking notes at what everyone else is saying here because I feel like we're just all fellow travelers, just at different points on the journey. So I have 2 things that I want to touch on. One is some advice I got at a key time early in my career from an artist that I admired, and he talked about the ambition of an aspiring artist. You're chasing deadlines, you're chasing shows, and you finally get in that show and you get some recognition for, say, a certain kind of painting, and so then it's easy to start to try to paint that kind of thing again because it worked in that other show. And he said you have to have the opportunity to fail. And I love that he used the word opportunity as if like, oh, this is a great thing, let's fail. And that has stuck with me, so that I'm not focused on chasing deadlines, chasing shows. I am focused on growth. The other thing he said about that is if you're focusing on growth over the product, He said, obviously you're going to be the better artist in the long term, but he said you will also have the better career, because you'll be, because it will be varied and your work will show that maturity. So that has really stuck with me over the years. The second one, I'm going to call this cultivating selfishness. I have students that come into workshops sometimes and they say, I really, really would like to be able to paint like you. And I look at their materials that they bring to a workshop and I think, well, I can't paint like me with those materials. So take yourself seriously. If you're in this, be all in. So that means getting the materials that will help you succeed. In this case, sign up for the Pastel Live and really invest in it and invest in yourself. Take yourself seriously and you will grow. And then the last thing with that, with something like whether it's a workshop or Pastel Live, the most important part of any workshop is the weeks after the workshop. It's when you take the time to really sit with yourself and do work within the next couple of weeks after a workshop. Because during a workshop, you're getting flooded with new information. It's afterwards that you can start to really ingest it and make it your own.
Yeah, especially because, you're a little worried about all the people around you and how you're going to look, and you need to kind of get used to it. But I think that's great advice. When I went to a Tony Robbins event, I booked a full day of hotel room after the event, and I spent one full day going over my notes and picking out the things I wanted to work on. And the reason I did that is because I knew the minute I got back to my normal life, I would get consumed with my normal life and busyness. And I think a great thing to do to just expand on that is if you go to a workshop, take a couple of days, if you can afford to, take a couple of days after the workshop and just focus on your notes, what you learned, practice what you learned. This is why we do the plein air convention the way we do. We say, okay, we're going to learn in the morning, and then you're going to go out in the afternoon, practice what you learned, because the sooner you get brush to canvas or pastel to paper, and you put those things in your head, you're going to learn them faster. That's why I like it when people either paint along during Pastel Live or they take notes and then they watch it again and they paint along and sometimes return to it time and time again. Okay, any final thoughts, people?
Let's have fun.
Let's have some fun.
Right?
We've
I
been
always
having
want to have fun when
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage everybody, if you go through your notes from today, I went through and I came up with 7 things, but there were more things than 7. Draw, take the opportunity to fail, experiment, embrace your fear, because that's when you're just breaking through. Control the voices in your head. Don't worry about your style. It'll find you. It's like your signature. It will find you. And then step out of your comfort zone. Everybody here has experienced tough times, bad paintings, voices in their head, but they continue to experience them. It's just part of the ongoing process. So
Can I add one thing?
I think we'll take a vote. Anybody?
Can I add one thing?
Of course.
You've heard wonderful advice. There's no failure.
That's right. No failure.
No failure.
I had to write that down. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, of course. There's no failure. You're going to do it. Decide which technique, which learning technique you're going to use it, and there's no failure.
All right. Well, and you're learning from every mistake.
Of course. And you're learning from every asset, not just the mistakes. Don't worry about the mistakes. Don't worry about finishing the picture. Just do them.
Yeah, like Bill said, it's a sketch. Don't make it precious.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anybody else? Any final thoughts?
I have a final thought. You're the artist. You're in charge of quality control. I heard that from Bill Parks probably 1,000 times. And I think what he meant was that we get to make decisions. You know, if you're doing a landscape and the tree happens to be dead in the center of your painting, you don't have to put it there. You're in charge of quality control. You can decide to move that tree in your painting. You can decide what to put in, what to leave out. You know, the question of style is basically the habitual decisions that we make about what to put in and what to leave out. And so after a while, you keep making similar decisions, and then people say, "Oh, I love your style." It's these habitual decisions.
Excellent.
I like him.
Excellent. Anybody else?
I think my final thought would be just a sense of gratitude. You know, realizing that there's this amazing community out there is really, really encouraging. Like to feel part of a tribe, because it can be a little lonely being an artist from time to time. So I take a lot of energy from all of you.
You know, the thing I hear often, Aaron, is when people come to my retreats like Fall Color Week, they say, you know, nobody here is judging me. You know, I'm painting next to, you know, John McDonald or somebody, Joe McGurl or somebody like that. And yet nobody's judging me. Everybody's embracing me. Everybody's helping me. And that's what's so wonderful about this community, you know, and we're all happy people because we're doing what we love.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of our artists, and I hope you guys will find an opportunity to put some quotes that you've seen today from some of these artists out on social media. Carrie, I think we have some winners. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. We do have some winners. For our VIP upgrades, the people who signed up today that received the free upgrade is Marion Turner from Vancouver.
All right.
Yay. Lynn Gill from Florida. And Colin Adams, I forgot to write down your state. Congratulations, guys. Yay, you all got upgraded to VIP with 365 days of replays for Pastel Live.
Awesome. And Carrie, I want to just say thank you to you. You've done a great job co-hosting today.
Thank you.
You have done a terrific job running Plein Air Salon. Do you want to just tell everybody, give them, 10 seconds on what Plein Air Salon is?
Plein Air Salon is an art competition online. That's 10 seconds. It's an online art competition open to anyone, international or not. We do monthly competitions each month, and then it culminates into the annual competition at the end of the year where you have the opportunity to win $15,000 and have your painting featured on the cover of Plein Air magazine. Yeah,
so I'll just add to that. First off, they don't have to be plein air paintings because Plein Air magazine features all kinds of artists, including people who do portraits outside and other things, and some are studio paintings, so all kinds of paintings. There's 21 categories, 20 or 21. We have $50,000 in all cash prizes, all cash, no made up, oh, we're charging, we'll give you an article, it's worth this much money, all cash. There's prizes every single month. So Carrie, you do a great job with that. It's gone better ever since you took it over. And so congratulations. Everybody give thumbs up to Carrie. And thank you again to our artists. We love you guys. You gave us a lot of great insights and a lot of great time today. I'm very grateful to you. We're looking forward to seeing you on Pastel Live and seeing you whenever we see you. I want to tell everybody else that I will start the clock the minute that we end this webinar. So a reminder that if you sign up within 30 minutes of when we end the webinar, you still can get those bonuses, which are worth $1,000. And you have till midnight tonight to sign up and get the special price and the free Essentials Day as well. And remember, everything's guaranteed. And remember, if you sign up today and tomorrow you go, that was a big mistake, you can cancel and there will be no penalty to you. And you've got about 2 weeks to cancel before the event cancellation time happens. So you've got plenty of time. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. We told you we were going to be 2 hours. We ran 2 hours and 31 minutes. And that's because these people have such great insights Love you guys. We've all become good friends, hung out when we've shot videos together or we've been painting together. And I'm just really feeling like the luckiest guy in the world. So thank you all. God bless. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a good night.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Good night.